Okay. So, all right. We'll begin. Please bow. Four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all. We're going to continue on with Samantabhadra's 10 Great Vows. Last week, we discussed 5 of the vows. I'm going to read all 10 of them to you now as a refresher, and then we'll start with the 6th vow. And this is from the very first part of this chapter 40 of the Vatamsaka Sutra. And it says, what are the 10? The first is to worship and respect all Buddhas. The second is to praise the thus come ones, the Tathagatas. The third is to extensively cultivate the giving or making of offerings. The fourth is to repent all karmic obstacles and reform. The fifth is to follow along with and rejoice in the merit and virtue of others. The sixth, which is where we'll start today, is to request that the turning of the Dharma wheel. The seventh is to request that the Buddhas remain in the world. The eighth is to always study with the Buddhists, sometimes called follow the Buddhas and study. The ninth is to constantly accord or harmonize with all living beings. And the 10th is to universally transfer all merit and virtue to all others. So we'll start with the 6th. And a lot of times when we read these, we just read them as part of a liturgy or part of an opening and stuff, and we really don't pay attention to what we're doing. We're not really looking into the profoundness of these great vows. And these are great vows because they're not just simply vows that that we make in this lifetime, but these vows you could call are forever vows, as so long as there is sentient beings, so long as there is anything, that these vows will be there until everything is totally exhausted. When we say exhausted, is all phenomena is exhausted from its arising and from its source. So we get to the 6th vow, which is a request a turning of the Dharma wheel. And I'd mentioned before the turning of the Dharma wheel, and there's various takes on which is the third of the Dharma wheels. The first two are pretty much agreed to. One is what the Buddha taught initially. And as he began to teach, he initiated with the 12 nidanas or dependent origination, but people weren't capable of understanding what he was doing. So he shifted over to something very simple, which is the Four Noble Truths. And in these Four Noble Truths, he found that people had a common ground. Everybody suffers, and they want to know what the cause of suffering is and that they can stop the suffering, and that would lead to an enlightenment and or a cessation of suffering. And it was pretty simple and made it very easy for people to follow along. Then came the second turning of the Dharma wheel, which took a look at what was happening in the first turning and the progression all the way through to the Abhidharma and the contentions in the Theravadan Abhidharma that everything is real. And it kind of flipped it all over and said, no, it's not real, it's empty. So that was your second turning, which led to or was generated by the Prajnaparamita Sutras, the Wisdom Sutras, and the obvious one is the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra, in its different iterations from the little sutra, the Heart Sutra, all the way from to 700 lines to 100,000 lines, but they all were revealing this generation of wisdom and compassion. And what they did was they introduced the notion of a bodhisattva. Not that it wasn't there before, but the notion of a bodhisattva in the Theravadan was showing the progression of Shakyamuni Buddha through different lifetimes until he became enlightened. But in this turning of the Dharma wheel, it went from everything is real to everything is empty, but there is this wisdom component that's there, followed by compassion. The third turning of the Dharma wheel is the one that I follow, is that there was the Tathagata Garbha Sutras, which brought about the idea of Buddha nature. And a lot of scholars would point to it and say, you see, that this is monotheistic. They're pointing to an essence, a body of something that is godlike in Buddha nature, but they really don't understand this kind of a progression, such as what Nagarjuna had presented with the apparent reality and absolute reality, but then neither said this one exists nor this one exists, or neither they don't exist, or both of them exist. He just left a space there to go through and try to find this fundamental balance between this, which is beyond words and phrases, but it is the Buddha nature. And the wonderful thing of this Buddha nature and achieving this Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi was this machination of great compassion. And we begin to see that this great compassion appears, and it's hard for us to understand it because we can only understand great compassion from a words and phrases point of view, from samsara. But this Buddha nature invites one to put aside conceptualization, which was very, very important. And what went into, as mentioned in the Dharmata Vibhaga, that distinguishing phenomena from its intrinsic nature, was this this lack of conception, what they called non-conceptual wakefulness. And so we would call awareness. And this non-conceptual wakefulness or awareness is there. This is what I present to you when you go to sit to meditate. This is a non-conceptual wakefulness that one is there. Non-conceptual because when you sit with the idea of the self, you're already conceiving that there's a personality, ego, life, or being, which was determined in the Diamond Sutra not to be existent. In the third turning, it's neither not existent or existent. It is just the suchness of mind. And so when we look at it in a non-conceptual way, we abandon notions of categorizing things as to being ignorance or nirvana. And you see in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, where they say it isn't this ignorance, it isn't samsara, and it isn't nirvana. Those both two constitute conceptions within samsara. If mind is mind, mind doesn't need mind to tell it that it's mind. Only something lesser than mind that's trying to aspire to become mind would call it mind or call it the Buddha. But it doesn't work in this way. It is just putting all conceptions aside. This was the third turning of the Dharma wheel, and it really invited one to cultivate in a proper way without the idea of clinging to an ego that needed to be brought along with it. And so it lays out, what if there's no ego? And we now present the ego as a projection on mind rather than something that's looking into mind. It simply becomes a projection. It's like seeing wallpaper with floral pattern on it, and it would be foolish for you to think that those flowers are real, that they actually pop off of the wall and are floating in the room. No, they're a projection. And so when mind sees that, it's clear about it. It doesn't need to look further into that projection. It sees through the projection, through to mind. Mind as a mirror, and looking at another mirror, it's infinite. And these are some analogies that may help you kind of pop through. It's not like you're popping through. It's like you're carrying a hole in the sky and letting the absolute pour in, even though it's already there. It just essentially, what's pouring in is the wisdom that even within the bubble belongs to the absolute. Okay, so this is requesting the turning of the Dharma wheel, meaning that we practice in a way that shows this progression. And when we see it, instead of taking this slit of time after the Buddha's death for 300 to 500 years after, and say, this is what the Buddha taught, this is all that we have. And rather than that, Mahayana expanded it, and expanded through cultivation of mind through to the esoteric, rather than trying to determine that it's some kind of a fixed thought or fixed teaching. It is showing this ability to expand beyond that, not in it doesn't contradict Theravadan teaching. What it does is illuminates it and pushes it further in terms of the practice, and the practice then no longer is one of the gamas that once trying to polish the tile to make a better self, but the very fact that there is just simply the emphasis on just mind. And that's really all the patriarchs taught, which is they call Patriarch Chan, is that ekayana, just mind. Okay, so we continue then. Moreover, good man, to request the turning of the Dharma wheel is explained like this. Within each and every fine mote of dust in the Buddha lands throughout the 10 directions and 3 periods of time, throughout the Dharma realm, the realm of empty space, there are vast and great Buddha lands, as many as fine motes of dust in the ineffable Buddha lands. In each and every land, in thought after thought, there are all Buddhas accomplishing equal and right enlightenment. Their numbers as many as fine motes of dust in an ineffable Buddha lands, a sea-like assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas circumambulate each Buddha. So we talked about this the last time, how Shifu said that the Buddha is the hub and everything revolves around it. And here they're talking about the circumambulation around the hub of Buddha. Using all manner of skillful means of body, speech, and mind, I sincerely and diligently request that they turn the wonderful Dharma wheel. And it's just so that even if in the realm of empty space is exhausted, the realms of living beings exhausted, karma of living beings exhausted, and afflictions of living beings are exhausted, my request that the Buddhas turn the Dharma wheel, proper Dharma wheel, is without end. It continues in thought after thought without cease. And it's kind of interesting because they say turn the proper Dharma wheel. So it's showing and saying, this is what the Dharma wheel is. This is the wisdom of the Buddhas. This produces compassion. And so now we get to the seventh, which is to request that the Buddhas remain in the world, or we say dwell in the world. And so it's important because what we're saying is that we need this guidance. We need this direction. We need this kind of a presentation in order for us to turn the corner and realize that this world itself is an illusion, and that we ourselves possess Buddha nature. When I say possess Buddha nature, I should say Buddha nature possesses us. And so we want the Buddhas to be able to be here so that we can obtain this kind of guidance. It's very difficult for us to try to figure these things out. And all religions, have people that come forth to present their views. In Buddhism, what attracted me to Buddhism versus, let's say, Christianity or some other religion was this whole idea of causes and conditions that was never fail, like Master Sheng used to always hit us with, never fail. Pratika Samapada, this is impeccable. And when one sees the world in this way, then one gets an understanding of why things appear, where sometimes it seems as though it's unjust or undeserving or whatever. Why did this person have a heart attack and die? Why did this person live? Why is this person so mean, but yet they're still alive? All these different things we can't quite understand. But as we see it and we begin to understand it's impeccable in how it works, then we see it in the long run rather than the short run. And then we see that these things in some point in time will exhaust. When the let's say the good karma protecting somebody is exhausted, sometimes it can come to what John Lennon referred to as instant karma. It's not so instant. It's just that's all that was left on the credit card to charge up, and then it was gone. And when we see this, then it makes sense. It brings us right into the picture and being responsible not only for our own body, speech, and mind, but are responsible in a way as that we are the caretakers of this world, and that we should uplift humanity and create this pure land here. And all of this is with the assistance of the Buddha's dwelling in the world, the Buddha doctrine, Buddha Dharma, all of this, that we see things in this way. So let's get to that part. So they say, moreover, good man, requesting that the Buddhas remain in the world, explained like this: all Buddhas, thus come ones, are numerous as the fine motes of dust in the Buddha lands throughout the 10 directions and 3 periods of time, etc. So it's a lot. And then they say, when they're about to enter parinirvana, so they're about to enter parinirvana, they're going, I'm finished with this world, I'm out of here, I'm gone, see you guys later, I'm done, I'm retired. And at that moment, when they're about to enter parinirvana, along with all bodhisattvas, sound hearers, those enlightened by conditions, learners, and those beyond study, including all good knowing advisors, I ask them all not to enter nirvana. Don't. Please stay here. The job's not done yet, huh? The job's not done. Where are you going? I request that they remain in the world for as many kalpas as there are fine motes of dust in all the Buddha lands, bringing benefit and bliss to all living beings. So it is that even the realm of empty space is exhausted, the realms of living beings are exhausted, the karma of living beings exhausted, and the afflictions of living beings are exhausted. Still, my request is endless. It continues in thought after thought without cease. Through body, speech, and mind, never weary of these deeds. And it is in this way that we want this to happen. We don't want this place to be given to evil or evil persuasions. We want the Buddhists, we want the Bodhisattvas, we want all the well-known advisors to remain in the world. We need everyone. We need each and every Buddha and Bodhisattva, and we ask that they stay here to help us, to boost us up, to be where they're needed. We get to the 8th, and this is to follow the Buddhas in study. And so it says, moreover, good man, to always study with the Buddhas is explained like this. I will be like Virachana, the thus come one of this Saha world. So we have to stop there and say, okay, well, who is this Virachana, the thus come one of this Saha world? So let's start at the back part of that statement. And the Saha world is this world of suffering that we're in. And so this world is constantly changing. And so there is a thus come one, because we asked him to stay, stays. And this is the Virachana is the primordial Buddha. And this Buddha is there, but here it's referenced along the lines of Shakyamuni Buddha, because Shakyamuni Buddha, or any Buddha, is not different than Virachana. It is in this way. And so everyone has this Buddha nature within them. We don't understand it. We don't go, well, I don't feel like a Buddha, I don't feel particularly wise or particularly compassionate, but you will. You're getting there. No, it is something that you have to see in the right way, and you have to practice in the right way, and we'll get to that in a moment. And so he said, who from the first time he resolved his mind never retreated from vigor, which is the right effort. He gave up ineffable numbers of bodies and lives. He peeled off his skin for paper, split his bones to fashion brushes, drew blood for ink, and wrote sutras stacked as high as Mount Sumeru. Because he valued the Dharma, he did not cherish his own body or life. How much less did he crave a king's throne, cities, towns, palaces, gardens, groves, any material things at all? He exerted himself to the extreme in different kinds of difficult ascetic practices. He accomplished the great enlightenment beneath the tree. manifested different kinds of spiritual powers, gave rise to different kinds of transformations, made appear different kinds of Buddha bodies, and dwelled in the different kinds of assemblies. He dwelled amidst the assemblies of the Bodhimanda of the great Bodhisattvas, assemblies of the sound hearers, the assemblies of the Pratyeka Buddhas. He dwelled amidst the assemblies on the Bodhimandis of the wheel-turning sage kings and retinues of lesser kings. He dwelled amidst the assemblies in the Bodhimanda of the Kayas, Brahmins, elders, and lay people, up to and including assemblies of gods, dragons, remaining 8 divisions, humans and non-humans, as he dwelled in various different assemblies such as these, with a voice that was full and perfect, like a great thunderclap. He brought all living beings to maturity according to their likes and wishes, up until the time he manifested nirvana. And here, when we're talking about it, is that the unceasing effort of a Buddha, and all the same with bodhisattvas, to practice and to study and and um, and help others through this type of a study, to really perfect the Buddha Dharma for the benefit of others, not for the self-aggrandizement of a person, or to make them think, people think, oh, he's a Buddha. No, it is to lead those that have not yet awakened to the realization that they too possess Buddha nature. In all these ways, I will learn from the Buddhas, and just as it is with the present world honored one, Virachana, so it is with all the thus come ones in every mote of dust in the Buddha lands, in 10 directions and 3 periods of time. And so it says, so it is that even if the realm of empty space is exhausted, etc., and they go on, still my study with them is without end. It continues in thought after thought without cease. Through body, speech, and mind, I will never weary of these deeds. As you begin to practice more and more, there comes an interest. One could say an interest or a thirst in learning Buddha Dharma at a higher level, learning more and more. And one never grows full of that. The more that one follows the Buddhas and study, the more that one studies. And it isn't something that we'll say, well, it's never finished. It is never finished until the last illusory sentient being is resolved. But it is in this way we no longer think about studying and going, oh, I have to study, or I have to do this, or I've got to learn this. It is the desire, I shouldn't say desire, the interest in preparing yourself to present to others this study, and interpreting this study in a manner in which people are capable of receiving it in a beneficial way. To some, it's simply take the broom and sweep, sweep, sweep. To others, one can talk about the esoteric in a very deep way, and people will understand it. But nevertheless, all of it is still following the Buddhas in study. And we never abandon that, and we also never abandon asking the Buddhas to stick around to help us. Okay, and we get to the 9th. This is to constantly accord with living beings. Sometimes it's called to harmonize with all living beings. And here again, when we talk about living beings, we're not talking about just simply human realm. We're talking about all realms. We harmonize with all, whether it is a dog, a cat, um, a bug, whatever it is. Today I was communicating with a lizard, and no, I don't know how much he figured out what I was doing, but I was just telling him that he shouldn't be sunning himself on my carpet because my dogs are probably going to make him lunch. But when I told him that, he took off running. So maybe he understood. But in any case, we harmonized with all. And as he went away, I made a vow to deliver him as well. So we do this in a way to be in accord and harmonize with all living beings. Ghosts. People go, oh no, I don't want to talk about ghosts, but ghosts are there, and ghosts sometimes they are very pitiable because they're lost in their ignorance and they've lost the way. Other ghosts, they're very, very tough and mean, and you have to help them in a different way. You can't communicate with all the ghosts in the same way. Some of them you can simply open up a space or light and they'll travel through. And others, they regale themselves in being top dogs in the ghost realm and picking on other ghosts. Other ghosts are ceaselessly hungry. So there's different kinds that are there. And we understand that. We understand there's different kinds of animals, different kinds of hell dwellers, different kinds of heaven dwellers. We have to be in accord and harmonize with all of these these gods, so that they can see exactly that they are in the Saha world as well, and that their joy will not last, and not only that, but their suffering will not last as well. And that gives them the ability um, uh, to endure what is happening. Probably the hardest thing for hell dwellers is the lack of hope, the lack of faith. Imagine just sitting somewhere in a dark cave, let's say, and nobody's coming in, nobody's going out, but you're just sitting there. You don't even know how long you've been sitting there. Nothing's happening. And eventually you lose hope. You lose faith. This is one of the greatest sufferings that one could have because it's interminable. You feel like that it will never end. So you've lost hope. Humans are that way too, right? How many of you felt that way or know people that have felt that way, that they just feel like just another wave crashing on you and you're never going to endure it, and you think, oh, now I can take a rest, and boom, you get hit with another wave. We don't understand that, and so because of that we feel that we suffer here. Others, they have a great joy, not understanding that joy will not last either, because these suffering and these joys are samsaric. They are connected with an ego. And so as a result of that, it's a losing game, no matter what. If you try to hold on to joy, you cannot hold on to it. You know, but on the other hand, suffering is the same way. When we see things in this way, then that's wisdom. When we see things in this way, then we help others that are tied and struggling through suffering, so that to give them hope and faith, even the hell dwellers. to give them hope and faith that they can get out. This is why the Bodhisattva, Earthstore Bodhisattva, Disan Pusa, is such a great Bodhisattva to be in hell to deliver those and give help and hope to the hell dwellers is a very great calling. So all of this is to constantly being in accord with living beings. So we living in accord with living beings, we don't eat your brothers and sisters, no matter how good they taste. Maybe the next time you'll be there in the market as some kind of bacon. We see things in the right way. And you see, we're in accord, we're in harmony. We try not to fight with people. It's not easy sometimes, but we do our best. But we're constantly trying to be in harmony. If people are presenting things that are negative, then we take the upper road and emphasize the positive, emphasize the harmony within everyone rather than picking and choosing sides. So this is how to accord with living beings. Let's see what they say here. And they say, throughout the seas of Kshestras, in the 10 directions exhausting the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space, there are many different kinds of beings. So it is to say that those born from eggs, womb-born, moisture-born, transformationally born, as well as those who live and rely on earth, water, fire, air for their existence. These are beings dwelling in, there are beings dwelling in space, and there are those born in and live in plants and trees. This includes all of many species and races with their diverse bodies, shapes, appearance, lifespans, families, names, and natures. This includes their many varieties of knowledge and view, their various desires and pleasures, their thoughts and deeds, and their many different deportments, clothing, and diets. It includes beings who dwell in different villages, towns, cities, palaces, as well as gods and dragons, others of the 8 divisions, humans and non-humans alike. Also, there are footless beings, beings with 2 feet, 4 feet, and many feet, with form and without form, with thought and without thought, and not entirely without thought or not entirely with thought. I will accord with and take care of all these many kinds of beings, providing all manners of services and offerings to them. I will treat them with the same respect as I show my parents, teachers, elders, arhats, and even the thus come ones. I will serve them all equally without difference. This is the practice of non-differentiation, non-discrimination. And it is a progressive practice. How many of you have expanded your transfer of merit to all realms, all the 6 realms, and able to see the different entities within those 6 realms, the subcategories within those realms? It is something that is within our practice. We see people with form or desires or the no form, We don't understand these things, but little by little, as we begin to delve into their apparent existence, we can directly understand in a non-conceptual way about this. It's different because when we see some things, sometimes we have a conceptual way of looking at things. But to see these things as appearances within mind, it's non-conceptual. It belongs to mind. How the more so that we should not take care of all these sentient beings and guide them out of ignorance. I will be a good doctor for the sick and suffering. I will lead those who have lost their way to the right road. I will be the bright light for those in the dark night and cause the poor and destitute to uncover hidden treasures. The Bodhisattva impartially benefits all sentient beings in this manner. Why is this? If a Bodhisattva accords with living beings, then he accords and makes offerings to all Buddhas. Pretty good. So if we harmonize with all living beings, we are, for all intents and purposes, offering the Buddhas the gift. If he can honor and serve living beings, then he honors and serves the thus come one. If he makes living beings happy, he is making the thus come ones happy. And why is this? Because all Buddhas, thus come ones, take the mind of great compassion, as their substance. Let's back up a bit. Let's absorb what was just said. We don't go to the next one until you can really feel this. Feel that all the Buddhas take this mind of great compassion as their substance. Let it sink in. This is extremely profound. This is the wisdom coming out of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutras, and now bringing it right to Buddha nature. What is the Buddha nature? It is the substance of great compassion. This great compassion emanates from the understanding of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, this understanding of how mind functions, how appearances arise, neither in a sense of a duality or a non-duality. It is just simply the suchness of the Tathagata. And within that is the Tathagata, I should say, that is within the Tathagata Garbha, the Buddha womb. We begin to see the Buddha womb as different in this way. And what is the Buddha womb's substance? Great compassion. This is what the miners would say, pay dirt. It's like they're digging and then they hit a vein of gold. And you follow that vein of gold. You look at this, you listen to this and try to ponder it and look into it and say, what makes something beyond compassion into great compassion? And it is this deep, profound demonstration of wisdom. Okay, so we continue on. Because the living beings, they bring forth great compassion. From great compassion, the Bodhi mind is born. And because of the resolve for Bodhi, they accomplish equal and proper enlightenment. It is like a great king of trees growing in the rock and sand in a barren wilderness. When the roots get water, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, and the fruits, they will all flourish. The Bodhi tree king growing in the wilderness of birth and death is the same. All living beings are its roots. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are its flowers and fruits. By benefiting all beings with water of great compassion, one can realize the flowers and fruits of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas' wisdom. This is what they call the maturation of one's practice. As one's practice matures, then one begins to, we're no longer simply just dwelling in the roots, but we see that there's a progression there, and this progression is one where there is a sprouting of leaves, sprouting of fruit, and a harvesting of the fruit or the flowers. Why is this? If all bodhisattvas benefit living beings with their water of great compassion, they can attain Anuttara Sambodhi. Therefore, Bodhi belongs to living beings. Without living beings, no bodhisattva could perfect the unsurpassed proper enlightenment, because there would be nothing to become enlightened. Bodhi is the enlightenment of a living being. That enlightenment of a living being, in fact, is the realization that there, in fact, is not a life and being, ego, personality. It is just mind. This is the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. If there wasn't an illusion that there is an ignorant sentient being, there'd be no reason to practice. There would be no cause or condition to bring about practice, because everything would be simply resolved. It's kind of a reverse way of looking at things in terms of how you see it, but then it works in this way. So we see it, we understand how this is. And in fact, through the 12 nidanas that I've mentioned a few times, working your way back through reverse engineering the 12 nidanas, we ultimately get to ignorance. Once the ignorance is extinguished, like in the Queen Srimala Devi's Lion's Roar Sutra, this nescient entrenchment of ignorance, we get past that, then there's nothing there. The only difference is that I remember mentioning this to Master Sheng, and I said, it's just like this. And he's going, yes, that's the way it is. And then as I was walking away, he said, but Gilbert, and he pointed his finger at me and said, remember, it only ends for you. And so what that was to say, you don't become an arhat, you don't go into nirvana, you stay here. And then it is like Shifu begging that the Buddhas dwell in the world. Through this iteration of me saying, stay in this world, do this. Not that I'm a Buddha, but the Buddha nature within me should stay here to help others, just like he did. And it is in this way that we see the things. Then these 10 great vows are so incredible because they truly point the way. So the 10th vow is to universally transfer all merit and virtue. And I have to tell you this, please do so. Please engage in this practice of transferring merit. Even if you think your merit was only this much, maybe even if you said Nama Amitofu one time during the day, nevertheless, transfer that merit. It means a lot. It's powerful. And if you can do that, you begin to say it more and more, and you begin to transfer to more and more. Then your mind will appear to grow. It's not that it's growing, it's just that the obstructions begin to be removed, and there is a realization of how incredibly infinite the mind is. So it reads, to universally transfer all merit and virtue is explained like this. All of the merit and virtue from the first vow to worship and respect up to and including the vow to constantly accord, I universally transfer to all living beings throughout the Dharma realm. Universally. Universally means that everyone gets it. You're not just spotlighting one person, but you're universally transferring it. You can spotlight a person, but even if you do that, you also universally transfer, and it doesn't reduce the attention where you are giving it to somebody that really needs help, that you know, that are sick or whatever. Nevertheless, they will benefit greatly, but everyone else will benefit as well. This is a very wondrous mystery of mind itself. It's very important. One needs to contemplate that. And it says, I universally transfer to all living beings throughout the Dharma realm and to the limits of empty space. I vow that all living beings will be constantly peaceful and happy without sickness and suffering. I vow that no one will succeed in doing any evil. I'm always, every night, asking any bodhisattva, any of the heavenly kings, any gods, anybody, please listen. Let's have a day where there's no evil in the world. It's a start, and to counter that evil with great compassion. This world right now, and in its actions towards our environment, our climate, our interactions between countries, we really need to transfer merit to all of the leaders, and that they will begin to recognize what they're doing. We want to harm someone else, but that comes as harming our own people. This is ignorance to the maximum. I vow that no one will succeed in doing any evil, but that they will quickly perfect the cultivation of good karma. I vow to close the doors to the evil destinies and open the right paths of humans, gods, and nirvana. I will stand in for beings and receive all extremely severe fruits of suffering, which they bring on with their evil karma. Here I have to be very cautious about this, that you don't try to take the pain and suffering of the world, because a sincere vow like that can cause you extremely great injury to your body, and so you have to be careful with that. When we do that, we say that we want to change the world in this way, but to take that kind of an action is very, very serious. and in the more sincere you are, the more that you can become very ill. I was recently talking with one master, one of my Dharma brothers, and one of his monastics that followed him. What did that? And he almost died. He went into a coma, and actually ended up losing some of the toes on his feet because he made that promise. So this is not something that you make very idly. I tell you that because you cannot make a vow like that. It's just too dangerous to do that. You can try to remove these things, but to accept the karma for everyone else is very, very serious, because samsaric wise, you will experience great pain and adversities from that. Okay. So that's why I have to say that, because I'm reading this, and some of you might be inspired to do that, but it's done right. It isn't in the right way. So, and it says, I will liberate all these beings, ultimately bring them to accomplish unsurpassed bodhi, unsurpassed enlightenment. The bodhisattva cultivates transference in this way. So we want to give wherever our level is at. We want to give them that and more. May they exceed our practice and go deeper and deeper. This is the way that we give and transfer merit to everyone. Even when the realm of empty space is exhausted, etc. They talk about exhausted. I will never weary of these deeds. And then it says, these are the Bodhisattva Mahasattva 10 great vows in their entirety. If all bodhisattvas can follow and enter these great vows, then they'll be able to bring all living beings to maturity. Remember, we were talking about the maturation of the practice. There's a lot of you that have been following me for a good deal of time now, and your practices have become mature, because this is the way that it is. The more you practice, the more sincerely you stay with it, then your practice will become mature, and you will serve as a beacon of light for others. If all bodhisattvas can follow and enter these great vows, okay, I already read that part. Sorry. They will be able to accord with Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi and complete the universal worthies sea of conduct and vows. Therefore, you should know the meaning of this. If a good man or good woman filled up the worlds with as many fine dust motes in measureless, boundless, ineffable Buddha lands throughout the 10 directions with supremely wonderful 7 jewels, and if they gave all of the supreme peace and happiness known to gods and men to every living being in all those worlds, and if they offered such gifts to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of these worlds, doing so constantly without cease for as many kalpas as there are fine motes of dust in the Buddha lands, they would acquire much merit and virtue. And then it says, but the merit and virtue gained from these gifts, when compared to the merit and virtue of a person who hears these kings of vows, pass it by his ear just once, does not equal 1 part in 100, 1 part in 1,000. It's incomparable. Moreover, if a person receives and maintains these great vows with a mind of deep faith, reads and recites them, or writes out just a single 4-line verse, he or she can quickly eradicate the karma of the 5 unintermittent offenses. All of the world's illnesses that afflict the body and mind, as well as the various kinds of bitter suffering, will be wiped away, up to and including the bad karma equal to fine motes of dust in the Buddha lands. Here, what's important is when they're talking about these 5 unintermittent offenses, these are very grave offenses, which before they call it ichantika. These offenses would prohibit you from realizing Buddhahood. But in the Mahayana, then even those offenses can be washed away at some point. Doesn't mean you're going to instantly get out of jail or get out of hell pass, but nevertheless, there's hope there for everyone. And that's what's very important, an all-inclusive Buddha nature. And we continue a little bit longer. All the demon armies, the yakshas, these are like natural spirits or nature spirits, rakshasas, sorry, and these are the ones that they steal your wealth or they'll eat you. So don't hang around with them. Kumbandas, these are like little dwarf, devilish little deities, can cause you a lot of trouble, and they're misshapen. Pishachas, again, these are ones you don't want to be around. They're flesh-eating demons, and they are like the epitome of evil. And bhutas, which are forest-dwelling beings, very interesting, and so forth. And all the evil ghosts and spirits that drink blood and devour flesh will go away from this person. They cannot harm them. But here's the part that's really interesting, very, very interesting, is they will go far away from this person, or they will resolve before long to draw near and protect that person. And so we see that in the sutra, the teachings of the inconceivable child radiance, where at the end, after he had exhausted all his karma, there were all these wild dogs or jackals around him in this little deserted hut, but they were licking him, they were protecting him, where in lifetimes before they would devour him. In that lifetime where he had now exhausted all of his karma, they were protecting him. And it's interesting in how we do this, because there's no fear from that little child. There's no fear in us in encountering. We don't try to go up to a demon or a ghost and say, okay, let's fight, I'm stronger than you are. You cannot do that. Don't ever do that, because you'll find out they're very, very strong. Master Shenhua actually tried that when he was young, and the ghosts and demons almost killed him. But we respect them, and by their own reflection of seeing the person, they will no longer see them as someone that is contrary to them, and will in fact protect them. Therefore, if he recites these vows aloud, he will move freely through the world without obstruction, like the moon appearing through the clouds. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will praise him. People and God should all bow in and respect him, and all living beings should make offerings to him. This good man will be easily get reborn as a human, and will perfect all the universal worthy Samantabhadra's merits and virtue. Before long, he will be just like Samantabhadra himself, obtaining the subtle and wonderful physical body complete with the 32 marks of a great man. Born among humans or gods. And it continues on, and it also talks about that at the time of a person's death, they will not be bewildered or confused, that they will easily see the right door to take, so to speak. So these are the 10. It goes on for a little longer, but I don't have enough time to finish the rest of the sutra. But I do welcome you to read the rest of that chapter 40, because it's very incredible. And again, they refer to these as these king of vows. And and if you practice in this way, believe me, it will change completely how you see this world. It will change what you do in this world. So I really invite you to practice in this way, and you will see that this type of practice will enrich in your practice, but not only enrich in your practice, but it will enable you to draw other people to the practice, because they will have faith in what you say. They will be interested in this, and they will see, that's pretty good. I want to be a, a better practitioner, not for the sake of being a better sentient being, but a vehicle in which delivers sentient beings from ignorance. So practice hard. Thank you. I'll take questions. Amitofo.
Hi. Uh, I have a question on related to the transfer of merits.
Somebody's talking, but I can barely hear.
Oh, this is Arvind. I hope I'm more audible now. Is it better?
I mean,
Could you raise your hand, Arvind? That way you will pop to the front and Gilbert will be able to see you, your video.
Oh,
I think it's Arvin.
that is. Yeah, that is me, but I am unable to put my hand up.
Just speak loud, please.
Is it better now?
If you get closer to your microphone, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll just switch off my camera so that I can get closer to the microphone.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Master, for the lecture today. The doubt I had was regarding transfer of merits. Today I was reading on the perfection of generosity from Nagarjuna's 6 perfections. And there was a lot of description on the various characteristics of generosity or what it means to be giving. And both in the case of giving and in transfer of merit, there is this idea of something like there is an action or there is a movement of like giving as an action or transferring as an action. And the one part that I can't find very clear is Nagarjuna also talks about like there is no motion or there is no coming or no going. So how do you understand like the idea of giving or transferring merit in the context of there is no coming or no going?
It happens naturally. It's a good question. We cannot resolve it or understand it within the idea of samsara. It is beyond comprehension within samsara, but it is simply the reflection of great compassion that's within the mind and is demonstrated little by little, the more that we practice in a way where we demonstrate this, we begin to pull away from the idea of a life or a being or a personality, and simply are recognizing that mind is functioning without obstruction. And in this way, it is impeccable. It's clear. It's purified action. And in doing this little by little, the more one practices in this way, one is demonstrating this incredible wisdom up to the point of Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi, this perfected wisdom, and it is being displayed as great compassion. There is no one doing it. There's no giver nor receiver. And when we talk about generosity, and in Nagarjuna's description of it, he even mentions that no giver nor receiver. It is just simply the function of mind and the demonstration of compassion. When we try to personify it or anthropomorphize that into something that is an act of a human, then we get lost in it because it isn't in that way. The samsaric illusion of a life and being cannot do that. That's why they say that a mechanical puppet could not do that, or Master Ling Chi saying, have your liver teach your stomach the Dharma. It cannot work that way. But when mind is just resolved without obstruction, it is the perfection of wisdom. And as we abide in this non-abiding, then it works. And that is something that needs to be contemplated and needs to be practiced in a way to be able to demonstrate that. But the very fact of recognizing abiding and non-abiding and contemplating that is a tremendous step. It's this incredible entry into the perfection of wisdom. So keep going with that. That's where you're headed with all of this. Don't try to put yourself back there. Remember, you're just a flower on the wallpaper on the wall. No, but the mind itself, without that illusion that the flower has come off the wall, functions perfectly. It is in fact that which put the wallpaper on the wall for the first time, anyway, in the projection, and it sees it as a projection, not as a life and being. But in that way, it is able to manifest this great compassion. This great compassion manifests within mind for mind. And the illusory sentient beings are, you could say, receiving the benefit, but in fact, it is just simply the awakening of mind itself by mind. So it's a good question. You just keep working on that. I mean, that's the more you practice in this way, the clearer it will get. Okay, and it will take you some time. You're just kind of taking your first bites of this, in a profound way, but it's good. It's good because as you do that, there's nothing that says that you can, you have to take 20 years to understand this. If you can get it from sincerity of your heart, you have a well-known advisor helping you, you can jump pretty quickly through. Okay. All right. Melton's up next.
My microphone, is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, if you could talk a little louder, get the microphone closer, it would help me. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have a question about okay, let me try. So if you don't have a strong sense of self and you try to get rid of it No, you don't try to get rid of it. You try to decenter it from your focus. It seems to be a bit pointless, but I feel that throughout this time, I've been kind of put in a challenge to define a little bit of my personality and my sense of being in order for me to practice well. And so I'm kind of confronted by the distinction between the perfection of your life and being with your perfection of wisdom, and how you get entangled in distinguishing both. I hope my question was understood. I can try again.
No, it's actually very good, and I strongly recommend that if you're on the Mindwork forum to review the entry that Eon put on there from it was it Wei Ning?
It was Shen Hui's platform sermon.
It is something that you should read, and it'll answer your question. Okay, and maybe you can type up some kind of a link to it now while we're talking, Ian, because if she reads that oh, there you go, right there. So you see, Arvin put it up for you. If you can kind of copy that down somehow, that will help you a lot to understand the difference, the two levels, where one level is practicing from the idea of a life and being and perfecting the life and being, and the other is practicing from mind. And all we're doing, one of them is there, when you're a life and being, you're trying to cord your ego with a perfected lifestyle, whereas in when one comes from the top down, it is a demonstration of mind in samsara versus trying to go up and build this stairway to heaven up like that. It is simply a demonstration from mind in samsara, and it makes a difference. It's why they say that you turn the mind's eye inward. Turning the mind's eye inward then is just simply whatever you do. Like, for instance, my lecture today was a demonstration of mind. It was not calling you to perfect or to polish your ego, but to let go of your ego and to like go and say, outside the bubble, look at this, so that you have the faith to be able to transcend this idea of that there's a bubble there. So you'll get it. Just practice. The point where you're at right now, Melanie, is that now you recognize there's two levels, and that article or that the treatise that Eon referred to, it is absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's something that when you look at it, then you see that this is how it all originates, and if you practice this way, it's the shortcut. And rather than going around the mountain, you actually obliterate the mountain of obstructions and see straight through. So keep working on that, and then pop up next week and let me know how you're doing. Okay. All right, great. So don't forget, try to read that part, because it'll really help you a lot. And Eon, when he did that, I was so happy to see that quote of that, because it was absolutely amazing. Okay, anybody else? All right. No other questions today? Okay, Sam.
Amitofo Gilbert, and thank you again for lecturing on these vows and really emphasizing the importance of them beyond just being something we recite with the liturgy. What I was going to ask too is about that vow you were talking about with the karma, with like you said it was like taking on other people's karma, correct?
Say that again. Taking what?
The vow that towards the end there you were talking about, it was a vow that Master Xuan Hua took. It's like a vow of taking on other people's karma. Is that how it's described?
It's taking on their suffering. That's a little bit dangerous. Shenhua Master was taking on demons, and it was kind of the wrong way to do things, and they let him know. But taking on other people's pain or suffering is something that can happen, but it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah,
And one should not even begin to think about doing that.
absolutely. Yeah, and I was going to ask you, was just, it sounds like that's the job of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi Buddhas to begin with. Like who, because it does sound strange to approach that vow without having that full understanding or full awareness of what that would really bring on, But I'm so sorry. I wanted to ask more so about, that was just a very interesting part. I wanted to more so ask you about oh my gosh, excuse me, I'm spacing it a little bit. With the transferring all merits to all others. It's similar to my question from last week, which is how as Chan practitioners can we do that without reinforcing a duality of, let's say, self and other?
That's the beauty. That it is that which you have to process through to be able to demonstrate this compassion, not from a samsaric source or understanding or conception. This is unteachable. Okay, one has to experience it and realize it to be able to do it. But it can be, and it is done by practice. So one begins to practice by quieting the mind and to be able to just simply be extremely sensitive to appearances in mind and appearances. Just like, this is why I love the description here of the 10 great vows when it's talking about all the different lives and iterations of lives, whether it's from the God realm all the way down to the hell realm and everything, that one uses awareness of the mind to expand. We are not capable of being able to do that because using a sentient mind, it's constantly having to switch. If I'm thinking of this one, then I can't think of this one. But in the mind, it is capable of thinking of countless sentient beings simultaneously. This is not an imagination. It is something that can be practiced, and it's very wondrous. We don't try to say, is this real or not real? We just keep practicing and practicing, and it will be self-revealing. Just keep playing with it and then check in later and we'll see where you're at with it, okay?
Amitofo Gilbert, thank you.
All right. Tom?
Sorry, you have to unmute yourself. Hi. Just at the risk of showing my ignorance, I don't know if I understand Sam's question. Maybe Sam can explain. And maybe let me explain my lack of understanding. When one is giving any sort of charity or doing anything which could be conceived of as on behalf of other sentient beings, we don't think of this as reinforcing dualities necessarily. It seems to depend on the state of mind with which you approach this. If you incorporate whatever it is you're doing into your practice, it doesn't seem to necessarily be dualistic. And it seems to me to be the same here with the transfer of merit. Whether you conceive of these other beings as actually being separate from yourself has to do with how you approach the transfer of merit. If you sort of say it just, I'm going to say as a listener, like going through the motions, it's dualistic, but from an authentic place of practice, I don't see how it's different from anything else that you do on behalf of someone else.
Because in the manner in which you're presenting it, Tom, there's still a giver and there's still a receiver. You're doing it out of a compassion and you're seeing things, but there's a discrimination between you and the other person. You see the other person as requiring some form of benefit to receive in this way, rather than simply the function of mind in extending compassion in a way that a sentient being is incapable of transferring merit to all others. If you go and you come out of a supermarket and there's a person there that needs help and you give them $5 or $10 or whatever, you understand that you're doing something and you're helping somebody. You may not be wanting to pat yourself on the back for it, but you say, but for cause and conditions go I, and so you're identifying with that rather than simply a non-conceptual assistance of the person. And we don't think in that way, that as you pop up and Sam goes down, I don't say, oh, I won't give you, but I'll give him. It's equally distributed. Whoever comes up with a question, I will answer their question, because that's just the function that I do, and that's a compassion. That's what one master said, when he was asked, what is Chan? And the master said, ask me a question. And
Right.
And so it is in this way that we practice. It comes with time. You're hanging in there and you're presenting, you're like clinging on to the idea of a life and being, but kind of going like, I don't know, maybe I lift the finger off and just let myself drop, or let go of the side of the pool, and let yourself float. And it's okay. Your question's natural. It's absolutely natural to do it. Just keep an open mind and listen, and then you will see that this kind of a practice truly is wondrous. And people who accept this kind of a practice, their ability to transcend this world opens up considerably, because we're no longer seeing it by virtue of a sentient being's point of view. It's just simply mind looking into mind. And as we begin to understand how that functions, then it works impeccably. So hang in there. Your question's a good question. Just keep working at it, listening to what I said, and it little by little it will clear up for you. Okay.
For what it's worth, I think just continuing to hang around will help quite a bit, because I don't have in my circle people to talk to, and so I agree with, I'm going to say essentially everything, but I trip over my words because I just don't feel like I have the tools to express myself just yet. I somehow have to just keep talking to
it's
reach
okay.
that
In
place.
due time it will come. People come in, and Sam was that way, before. And no, and everybody that's in this Zoom meeting has been there. Arvin's not too far from that as himself, but he's a sincere practitioner, so he picks it up a lot faster. It is just in this way. Everybody picks it up in their ability to understand it, and that's good. So I'm very happy. I have one of my very old students. Actually, he looks younger than me, but he's old. He's an old student, Joseph Hyde. So I have to say hello to Joseph there. No, I don't know whether Letty was before him, or you guys came in around the same time. You see Letty's there, Joe. And So, the prodigal son has returned. So that's good. Yes, Joe.
I don't know how to hit the hand yet, but I'll figure it out. Um, no, I think Letty was first. I do have a quick question though. I don't know if it was specific on what you were talking about, but one problem I have is when I read sutras or things of that nature. For me, it's really difficult to, because I kind of feel like I should analyze it, but I can't really force the thoughts. I mean, I don't want to force the thoughts. I do try to feel, and sometimes I do, but it's kind of limited.
The very fact that you're still around and hanging there. By the way, Joe came to me. I don't know how old he was, but he was like a young teenager when he first started with me, and you're still there and you're still hanging in there, and you understand that there's something there of value, and so just you're on the right path. You haven't abandoned this, and causes and conditions, in this world go up and down, and but it's fine. Just keep practicing the way you're doing. Try to feel it. When you read the sutras, try to picture yourself in the sutra and what's happening. So you're like one of the people that are watching what's happening when there's a dialogue between the Buddha or bodhisattvas or whatever. You're there and you try to picture it and you see it, and it will turn into a hologram for you. And that's when it feels like a hologram, then you got it working right. When you see things and you just go, oh, I see how that is, and then you can even picture the people speaking to each other, and it will work. You just hang in there. It is your, let's say, wisdom constant in your life, and is something that you never abandon it. Because it will help you all the way through. As this world is a lot of ups and downs, and sometimes when you think you're up, the next moment you're down. It just happens. But this is probably the greatest gift you ever received in your life, is to have that to help you to get through all of the difficult times, and to treasure the times when things are going well. So hang in there. You'll get it. Just like I say, just try to picture it happening rather than reading words. When we read the words, then it's not the same. But when we're there, in the scene with what's happening, that's what makes a difference. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Nobody else? Okay. Well, we'll finish. I'll come up. Oh, we're going to go back to the Dharma Dharmata Vibhaga next week. And so we will continue on for the next part. That sutra or treatise is so deep. I don't want to burden you with you to try to get you through it all at one time. I want to kind of interlace it with whatever we're teaching as well, and it'll make more sense to you. And little by little, we kind of work our way through that. Okay. So thank you for all joining in, and thank you for supporting what we're doing, and even just showing up. But it's something that's important for us to develop a very strong sangha. So